in this room, I like to talk about that potential, that pure potential that is within each and every one of us. And it is a beautiful gift that we have. And far too often, we let past conditioning, past ideas, all these other things start to kind of take over our life, and we start to live our life by default rather than by design. And so that's what we are really working on in this room. And so today I'm going to talk about the power of choice, and I'm going to talk about the power of choice from the perspective of how we can really use it to fuel ourselves forward and also pay attention to what's coming up for us and what might be the block and how we can start to reframe that. And I thought about this topic actually because the other day I was heading out to my backyard, and as I started heading out to the backyard, I walked smack dab right into the middle of a ginormous spider web. I mean, a big spider web. And this spider was crawling right by the side of my eye and hanging there. And I'm telling you, it was not a small thing. It was like, we're talking big. Big where I could see its eyes, big where I could see the hair on its back. And I kicked it around, threw it down, and I thought, you know what? I felt badly at the same time because I looked back and here was this beautiful web that this spider had been designing, and I just completely blew through it and knocked it down. And it made me think, you know, it's interesting that animals, insects, all of that, right? Nature, it doesn't have a choice. It doesn't have that choice. It is going through life based on instinct. That's it. It's baked on. Now, it might say, okay, I'm going to choose to spin my web over here or whatever. But basically, it is walking through life based on instinct. And for us as humans, we have a beautiful, beautiful gift of free will. But here's the thing. We can either be burdened by that free will, or we can be blessed by the great responsibility of free will and of the power of choice. And so our future then obviously is determined in large part by the choices that we make. We can't always control the circumstances, but we do obviously have a choice to how we respond to whatever happens. And when we can start to reclaim that power of choice, when we can stand in our innate wisdom and our own innate power, that power of the spirit that lives within us, we can then find the courage to then show up for ourselves, follow through on the commitments we make for ourselves, make the choice to maybe say no to something that maybe we might not necessarily want to do. But remember, anytime we say no to something, we're saying yes to ourselves. It comes down to the ability that we have to make a choice. But what happens is that we start to get into reactionary mode. Far too often we're in reactionary mode because we start to live by default. We start to let all the things around us start to press in against us. Oh my gosh, the economy's going to hell. Oh my gosh, I don't have enough money. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I don't have the time. There's too much to learn. I can't figure it out. All those other things. That might be part of life. But it's how we react to it, right? And when we start to look at that and we say, no, wait a minute here. That might be going on, but how am I choosing to show up? Because really the only thing you have control over is yourself. You don't have control over another human being. You might have somebody that has left you, has had an affair. Maybe they're not showing up in the marriage the way that you would have liked them to. Do you have control over that? Absolutely not. You have control in the way you respond to it or react to it. If you have somebody that has left and they're not paying child support. I was just dealing with somebody the other day, my friend that was telling me he's still not paying me child support and getting so upset and anxious over it. It's like, wait a minute, okay, what's the choice here? You can choose to continue to stay in that mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm so angry at him, etc., which I get. We all have those moments. I used to stand in the shower and scream and cry when going through a divorce and thinking, oh my gosh, I have to rebuild everything. I have a responsibility to take care of everybody. I had to scream and cry to get it out because that's part of our human. That's part of being human. It's part of our emotions. We understand the language of feelings, and you have to sometimes get through that and get that out so that you can move forward and then replace it with a much more positive and a much more helpful thought. And so in those moments, it was thinking, wait, oh my gosh, How am I going to change this? How am I going to change this? Because once we get something out, we have to fill that void. It's going to be filled, and it's up to us as to how we fill it. That's our choice. So it was for me looking at those moments and saying, oh my gosh, yes, I'm angry at this situation. Yes, I'm upset that, we're not further along, or that we lost the bid. My husband and I had a business we lost. And it was like, yeah, that the business went belly up, or, all of those things. But at the same time going, okay, what am I learning from this? And how can I maybe see something differently? And what is the choice that I'm going to make around this that will actually get me out of here? Because if I'm sitting in that negativity, if I'm sitting in that space of this sucks, I don't like it, I don't want to feel this way again, that's great. I know what I don't want. But the moment I know what I don't want, the opposite is that I know what I do want. And if I know what I do want, then that's enough that it starts to pull me through, where I can start making more decisions, or I can start making, I would say, better decisions that will help me to stay on track and on course to what I truly want. But that comes back to us understanding who we really are and what is it that we really want. What is our driving motives? Sometimes we don't pay enough attention to that. I'll give you a really simple example of how this kind of plays out. A few years ago, my daughter was running the marathon. She decided to run the marathon in Chicago. Now, I am not a runner. I am a runner. I run 5 miles. I think the most I've ever maybe run up until then was 6 miles. But I'll run 5 miles. No interest in running a marathon whatsoever. Never been on my radar. But I flew back to Chicago to hang out with her. I said, look, I'll cheer you on. I'll run a little bit in the beginning with you, and I'm going to run the last part of it with you so I can get photos, cheer you on, especially when you're in that last few miles, as far as they would let me go. They usually stop you about a mile outside the finish line. So I hop in at about mile 4, and I'm running with her, and she's handing me her jacket, and we're going, and I'm talking with her and hanging out. And then I realize, oh my gosh, I can't get off this track. I can't get out yet. So I go a little bit further, barricades everywhere. Finally, after 7 miles of running, I hop out and I'm like, listen, I got to save myself to run that last part with you. So I hop out, I go look around, I'm going to get on a train. Go to get the train. There's no train to be had. Why? Because the complete city is shut down. It's in gridlock. There's no Ubers, there's no taxis, there's nothing. So I go a little bit further and I ask somebody, how the heck am I going to get there? I have promised my daughter I'm going to get there. Now the maternal instincts are kicking in, right? The mom in me is going, I made a commitment to my daughter. I am going to be there. Come hell or high water, I'm going to figure out how do I get there. Like I have to get an Uber. And they were like, I'm sorry. The only way is to hop on the course and run it out. And I'm thinking, already run 7 miles. Like you don't know who I am. And yet in that moment, the vision of connecting with my daughter and being able to run up alongside her, taking photos, cheering her on, seeing the smile on her face and seeing her light up when she knew that I was able to get there and get near the finish line with her was the thing that was enough to pull me forward. My why was so incredibly strong in that moment. I had made a commitment not just to my daughter, but I had made a commitment to myself. And there was no way, despite the blisters on my feet and despite the cramping in my calves, there was no way I was not going to do it. I already knew I was going to do it, and I was so certain I was going to do it that I was going to figure out a way to get there. In the end, I caught up with her. I ran the last several miles up until they would let me. In the end, I ended up running just over 16 miles. Now, I have never run more than 6 miles up until that point, certainly not continuously. And yet in that moment, I was able to do it. Why? Because the why was so strong. And yet I also knew that the pain of not doing it, of not following through on a commitment I had made to my daughter and to myself, would have absolutely crushed her spirit, and it would have crushed me as well. I didn't want to live with this regret that I couldn't do it. And I had, in that moment, really no plan B. We oftentimes hear about letting go the plan B so you can move forward and just jump, right? Jump and the net will appear. And so then we start going through those motions and we try to do that. But as we do it, we forget that sometimes there's something inside that isn't connecting to that. Maybe it's our why that isn't strong enough. Maybe we don't have a purpose that we really feel fueled by. And so we have to take a look at that and say, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why am I pulling back? Why am I keeping myself playing small? Why am I holding back? I have a tremendous regard for athletes. And I have this regard for athletes because I just have so much respect for them, because I think you can so clearly see our potential fully played out when you watch an athlete at his peak. Because athletes have this ability to push through those limitations, just like I did in that marathon. They have this ability to call themselves to play full out, to call themselves to play into a fuller game. Michael Jordan, despite all of his talent, was cut from his high school team. He wasn't cut from his high school team, though, because he didn't have the talent. He had the talent. He was the best player on the team. He was cut from the team because his coach said he was lazy. His coach said, you're not playing up to what you're capable of playing up to. And I think that is so telling, because how many of us quit? How many of us take a few steps forward and then we go, it's not really working. So we pull back, or we jump from one thing to another, trying to look for these answers outside ourselves, rather than just sitting back, listening to ourselves, holding on and going, oh my gosh, what's really going on here? What's really going on? And why is it that I maybe keep stopping short? Why is it that maybe I'm not getting to the finish line? Why is it that I keep coming up with excuses? Maybe I'm procrastinating again. Am I getting into the perfectionism again? You have to take a look at what are these things that are really coming up for you, and what is your pattern of behavior. Because when you can understand what your pattern of behavior is, you have a clear indication as to what's really running the show. And you can see now how those habits are really taking over, and those are the things that are running your life, rather than you making the choice you truly want to run your life. That starts from truly paying attention to what's going on in our life, what's showing up. If we keep hitting the same level of, finances over and over again, if we say we're going to have $1 million business and every year we keep hitting 100,000, well, why is that? What's going on? Is it the business itself? If you're making money in the business, probably not the business. What's really showing up? Is there a belief in you that it's possible for some, but it might not be possible for you? No matter how many I am statements you have, no matter how many times you've scripted it out on the wall or you've written it in your journal, if it's not happening, then you have to take a look at that and say, what's really going on? And then if we do a deep dive into that, we can look at it and say, wow, I can remember that my parents struggled with money. I can remember every single month, at the end of the month, they would put all the bills on the table and they would look at it and go, gotta rob Peter to pay Paul. That was my story for a long time. That's what I grew up with. I used to see that all the time. My parents always getting angry with each other when the bills came. And it was like, ooh. So I associated pain with money. And it was like, oh, this is difficult. And so I had to kind of look through that and go, okay, is that really true though? Is it true? Do you have to rob Peter to pay Paul? Or do I know other people that don't have to live like that? And when you can identify first, it's the first step, you have to identify what's showing up in your life. What's showing up in your life? When you can take a look at that and you start to see a repetitive pattern, then you can stop, look at it and say, okay, why is this constantly happening? Then you can look at it and go, do I have any kind of memory of something like this happening somewhere in my life? Or you can ask yourself quite simply, is this working for me? Or is it time for me to maybe change this? Is it time for me to maybe shift my perspective here and start to really educate myself, whether it be through personal development, whether it be through doing a deep dive, maybe even through hypnosis and figuring out, okay, what's the pattern? Where did it come from? But looking at it and saying, do I want to change this? Because that's going to be very telling. Many times we've become so comfortable in the pain, whether or not we like to call it pain, but we've become so comfortable in the familiar that even though we want something different and we say, I don't like this anymore, I don't want to feel this way, we don't move forward. I have a friend that is constantly telling me, okay, 3 years now I've heard, I just got to lose 10 pounds. Got to lose 10 pounds. I really got to get at it. I got to lose the 10 pounds and get back at it. And I finally said, I don't want to hear it anymore. Like, you know exactly what to do to get healthy and to drop that extra weight that you feel is keeping you from really feeling comfortable in your clothes. You know what to do. But why haven't you done it? So the question then becomes, why haven't you done it? If you want to step out and create that business, why haven't you stepped out to do that yet? Is there an underlying belief inside of you that says, that's only for other people, we don't really do that? I have a friend that has so long wanted to be an actor, taken all sorts of classes, done everything, but yet keeps pushing it to the back burner and comes up with these ideas that sound very logical. Listen, our mind's very tricky, right? We can easily justify our patterns of behavior. And so what she has said is, when I get this business up and running and I have the finances, then I can go live my life the way I want. Then I can pursue my acting. Now, it doesn't mean that she doesn't need to continue to do something to have some money coming in while she's doing it. But she didn't need to set up this whole secondary type of business so she can pursue the acting. And so often we do that. We look for other ways that we think are going to be the correct way to do it. It's kind of like, listen, work, 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 work. And when you retire, then you can enjoy life and do the hobby you want to do or take the vacations. That's crap. That's absolutely not true. There's no reason why you can't live your life the way you want to live it now. Is there going to be some adjustments that you're going to have to make? Yes. She had to learn that she has to pull back on some of the expenses that she's putting out there. She had to start budgeting a little bit more so that she could put more money into some of the acting classes, so that she could take a little bit more time off to go pursue some of these auditions. But as soon as, remember what I said about the void? As soon as she let go of that idea that she had to have this whole other secondary business going and set up so that she could go off and start doing the auditions, what happened? She kept leaning into the visualization, the vision of her actually in an audition and landing a part. That void had to be filled. So she filled it by visualizing what she truly wanted. And I mean visualizing it, seeing or feeling the phone vibrating, and she's picking it up and they're saying, hey, I've got an audition for you, send your stuff, do this, blah, 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 right? Going through the motions. In her mind, she went through the motions as she knew them in order to put those auditions out. Well, she just found out she was SAG eligible the other day. That opens up a whole new world for her, a whole new field of opportunity for her. She didn't even realize she was SAG eligible. That is huge in that industry. She's now getting auditions at a much higher level and for much higher pay. That happened when she finally realized that she didn't have to do the other thing. She could start leaning towards what she truly wanted. But why wasn't she? The reason she wasn't is because she didn't believe it in herself. She didn't truly, deep down, believe that it was possible for her. She believed it was possible for other people. So how'd you get there? The way to get there sometimes, a quick way to get there, is to start looking at all the other people that have done it. I am huge on reading biographies, because I can look at a biography of somebody and I can tell, whoa, what did they have to go through in order to muster up the courage within themselves to bolster that belief so they could start to do it. If you read the biographies of most actors, of most athletes, you will find all the struggles they had to go through to get to where they want it to be. We don't see all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. We see the person on the magazine cover. We see the business that's just booming out there. But we don't see all the stuff that's going on beneath the surface. Trust me, there are changes that have to go on. Sometimes they're so subtle that we don't understand it and we don't really see it. But when somebody truly has a desire and they step out in faith and belief that they can achieve that desire, that action will be rewarded. It has to be rewarded. Spirit will always reward faith. Even in the Bible, it says if you have the faith as small as a grain of a mustard seed, it will be rewarded. Why is that? Because action creates clarity. And with every little step forward you take, you get clearer and clearer, and you open yourselves up to a larger opportunity. You'll get the introduction to somebody that you need to help you on your journey. You'll get the call that you've been waiting for. All of a sudden, you'll get the recognition that possibly you needed in your business to get you that next contract. But things will start to happen when you start to lean into and trust that there is the possibility that you can truly have what you want. If it's happening for other people, it can happen for you too. No one else is more special than you. We're all created in the same image and likeness. You have that ability, but it's your responsibility. You have the ability, but it is your sole responsibility to make a decision. All change happens when we make a decision. Doesn't happen until we make that decision, though. What happened for her was she made a decision that she was tired of trying to get this other business going, and it wasn't what she truly wanted. So I'm going to ask you right now, is what you're doing, if you keep hitting the same wall over and over again like a bee sitting in a glass where it keeps bumping up along the sides of it, if you're not getting what you want, is it what you really want? Or are you doing it for the money? She was doing that for the money so it could support her real dream. What? That's crazy. Why are you spending your energy over here trying to build a business when you could make the contacts over here? Just by making a few tweaks. So it was like, what are the tweaks we have to make? Okay, adjust the finances a little bit. You have a choice. Pull back on some of the expenses that you have right now. Lean into a little bit more on your acting. Take a look at what you've already done. Take a look at all the other people who have done it. Pay attention to that and do it every single day. Make a commitment to yourself that you will visualize this every single day until your belief becomes so strong that there is no possible way it can't come true for you, because you are leaning into it through baby steps. And if your baby step is simply through you mentally imaging it first, remember everything happens twice, first in the mental realm and then in the physical realm. If you have to start first mentally, get that picture in your mind and get it so clearly in the mind that the way you want it to be, so that it will start to help you find the opportunities and actually act on those opportunities. And it will start to call you forward towards the life that you really want. We have the power of choice through the beautiful gift of free will. All of us do. It can be easy, it can be hard. But what are you telling yourself? It gets to be easy. Switch the language. Take a look at what you're saying. Your words are so incredibly powerful. In the beginning was the Word. Words create. Words absolutely create. Pay attention to your words. How often do you tell yourself, oh, I'm so tired. Oh my God, I just don't have enough hours in the day. We all have the same amount of hours in the day. We know that. So how are we using them? Are we really focused and taking that committed, focused action? Or are we spinning our wheels going, I'm going to go over here now and look on Amazon for something else because I just need to get out of my mindset right now. Like there's so many things that we just allowed to come in and infringe on our time. Most important thing you can do in stepping into the life that you truly wanted for you, the life you want to create by your design, is to make a decision and a commitment to yourself, a decision to show up for yourself, and a commitment that you will somehow, some way, figure it out, and you will live that desired result that you truly, truly want. We all have that ability, and it's our responsibility to act on the desires in our heart. Why? Because that is how Spirit expresses itself. Spirit expresses through us, through each and every one of us. So when we have a desire, we have within that desire the seeds to bring that desire to reality. And that is your responsibility. Because when you do that, you show other people that it's possible. That's how she decided she was going to now step out towards her acting, because she looked around at all the other people that had done it as well. Again, when you reach into that and you show up for yourself, you are also showing up for other people, and you're showing them that it is possible for them as well. The Michael Jordans in the world, the A-Rods in the world, the Derek Jeters, all the Olympic athletes that go on to win, Mark Spitz, and oh gosh, all these people that win those gold medals and stuff. Do you think that it's just them that are special? No, it's hard work, it's commitment, it's showing up, and it's being consistent. If it's what they truly, truly want. So you have to ask yourself, is this what I truly want? Or am I doing it because I think it's going to get me to where I want, but is there another way? Always ask yourself those questions. What might be another way of getting here? What might be the possibility? What would my life look like if? Ask yourself those questions. Play in that field of imagination. You have a beautiful gift of imagination. We as humans have this gift, this gorgeous gift of imagination. We can create in our minds what we really want outwardly, but it has to start in the mind first. And within that, sometimes we find out, oh my gosh, I have these stories that I've been telling myself over and over again that's so hard that you can't do this and you can only have one thing and not the other. And you can stop and look at it and say, wait, is that really true? Do I know other people that have wonderful, unconditionally loving relationships? Or is it that all men can't be trusted? My mother-in-law used to say that all the time, can't trust men. Really? That might have been true for her, but that's not the story I know. You have to ask yourself these questions. Is that the truth, or is there another way of seeing it? Is there anybody else out there that I know that's actually living like I want to live? If that's the case, it's possible. And it's possible, we know anyway, because if it's in your heart as a desire, then it's possible. Because within that is the seeds to bring it to fruition. And that's our responsibility through the power of choice and through the power of free will.